Hello and welcome to a very special episode of Letterboxd Logs. Why is it special? Well, one, I'm actually making another one of these. It's not like 3 years ago almost where I made one and abandoned it. This time, let's see how long we can stick through with this. And the other reason why this is a special episode is because I am going to talk about the movies I watched when my girlfriend from Britain came over to America for the second time. Yep, she had first come in at the end of 2023, and this is her second time in America. Yes, even after that election. Oh, bless her poor brave soul. But thanks so much to Janie for coming over again in the middle of February. Well, in early February. She came for 2 weeks. So we watched a few movies, so let's talk about them. But before I get to that, for anyone interested in my main scripted reviews, I am working on my next one. I have all the background details and history figured out in a script. I just need to watch the movies and write a review on them. I've just gotten cold feet because somehow I've gotten kind of insecure about making these longer, more in-depth videos, but I do want to follow through on it. And also, I've just been really passionate about drawing lately, so that's taken some of my free time too. But I do want to get a video out for you. Even if I might be even considering doing a little quick one on a movie, but that's neither here nor there. Let's get to the movies I watched with my girlfriend. Starting with the one we watched just before her trip, which was Police Story. Now, we watched this just before she had traveled to go on the plane. It wasn't technically we watched iCarly's I Go to Japan while she was in a hotel in London, but that one sucked and dragged out. There's my review on I Go to Japan, in case you were wondering. But we watched the Jackie Chan's Police Story, which is my first Jackie Chan movie I've ever seen. And I was really stunned. There was so much, it started on an action-packed chase that I think action movies would clamor for just to have a climax as exciting as that. And that was the opening. Police Story was a movie that I really got into. And one thing that's interesting about it, I should summarize the story. I have a bad habit of jumping right into it. Jackie Chan is a detective, and after catching this thug, he needs to protect the wife of the thug who is going to testify in court against him. Despite that premise, it goes quite a few places with it, and that's one of the things I liked about the movie. I expected it to be like almost a buddy cop kind of movie where it's Jackie Chan and this thug's wife, but it wasn't. And it reminds me of my review of Audition, where I talked about how much genre isn't about so much categories of a movie, but catering an expectation for a viewer. Although this is a demonstration of how genre is almost maybe even cultural and drummed up within one's own head, because I expected it to be like a buddy's cop movie, but this one doesn't really follow the buddy cop structure. A little around halfway through maybe, the thug's wife is out of the story, and so it's what Jackie Chan does to, let's say, clearing spoilers, to solve a crime and also redeem his name. Trying to be light because the plot goes way and it's one thing I loved about this movie is that it's a moving plot. The situation of Jackie is always changing. That's one thing that I really loved about the story, is that it's always moving and the situation's always changing. But to go back to my genre spiel, I expected a buddy cop movie and it didn't really conform to that. It made me think, oh wow, genre over here is kind of confining in that sense, where if you say, cop comedy, you instantly think buddy cop. But no, this was interesting because it made me think, this there's more than just one genre. There's more than just one way to do it. And that's in general one thing I find interesting about foreign films. Because they don't always conform to this genre structure of other cultures. But anyways, let's cut to my girlfriend already flying over the sea, scary, and I finally get to hug her in my arms, and she's back. We're sitting on the couch chilling, and what's our first movie we watch? Wallace and Gromit: A Vengeance Most Fowl. Now, this is a movie that is very special to us because, well, one, my girlfriend is British, so she grew up watching Aardman stuff. Of course, Wallace and Gromit, the classics. And when my girlfriend and I first started talking over Discord, it was around the time that COVID started. There's something about, everyone being isolated, and we were just chilling and watching some Wallace and Gromit. She was showing me some of the shorts, and it was my first time watching them. So she has an innate connection with her youth to these classics, and I have a connection, a connection in terms of our youthful relationship at the time to these as well. So when these came out in December, we didn't want to watch it. We didn't want to hear anything on it. So we wanted to hold off until we were together. So this was always going to be our first movie we watched. Wallace and Gromit: A Vengeance Most Fowl is a sequel to The Right Trousers. No, that's not it. That's that stupid parody. Whoops, I should not have said that. Wallace and Gromit: A Vengeance Most Fowl is a sequel to the short The Wrong Trousers. And I say that because it continues off of it. Most other Wallace and Gromit material is pretty standalone. This is the only one that has a continuity. The police officer from the movie shows up, and Feathers McGraw shows up once again to seek revenge. The story is Wallace invented a new gnome robot to garden, and it becomes a big hit across town, but Feathers McGraw in jail ends up hacking a computer to turn Wallace's machines evil. Now, no matter what, my girlfriend and I were going to be excited for the movie because of what the series meant to us. So it had a lot to live up to, especially since this wasn't a short. It was a full-length movie, straight to Netflix, and not to be too negative, it's a good movie, but it's below average, it's subpar to what we would have wanted from Wallace and Gromit. Now, part of why it is a bit of the messaging. It's hard not to draw the parallels of Wallace's gardening robot to AI. And part of what it is that Gromit loves gardening in this, and then Wallace builds an AI, a gnome, to do it for him. So to us, we saw, it's like AI. People who like drawing, but AI does it for them. And it's like, well, if you like doing it, why would you want AI? Of course we know why companies do, but anyways, the parallel is drawn in the movie. And this isn't really spoilers. At the end of the movie, Gromit is gardening, or actually that's a problem. He's not gardening, is that the little gnome robot is doing it for him. So it comes off, it ends up hindered because of the possibly not intentional correlation to AI, where it's like, well, what good is the robot? Gromit liked gardening for the sake of it. So that didn't help the movie, but I can't hold it necessarily against the people who made it, because I don't think they support AI because, well, they're in the film arts and stuff like that, and claymation is, a lot of effort. So it's hard for me to say that's an impression of them, but it does come off as a sense in the movie, and whether or not it's intentional, it still hindered it for me. But regardless of any received messaging, I think the movie has some flaws. Like, for one, Feathers McGraw's plan gets really convoluted in a sense. Not necessarily in how it develops, but there's a flashback around the middle of the movie where it's like, there's so many contingencies that could have went wrong here. It only happened to go right. It was just too unbelievable. Like, why would Feathers McGraw plan this way? It was just too much to buy. That's when my girlfriend and I really fell out of the movie. Also, to try to elevate this to the status of a full-length movie and the expectations that come with it, Wallace goes through an emotional low point where he doubts his inventing abilities because this robot turned evil. It wasn't his fault, so we know Wallace isn't to blame, that his invention abilities are still like they ever were. So he undergoes an arc where he doubts himself and then is like, oh wow, you mean I can invent again? For the climax? And it just comes off really weak. And out of nowhere, my girlfriend was really surprised, like, oh wow, this is what you're trying to have a sort of character arc here. It came off really weak and like just a cheap attempt to elevate it to a full length feature, to where they tried to have some more stakes, kind of. And in fact, I think the length comes down to, I think it being a film length hinders it a bit, because stuff like Feathers' plan, which ends up too elaborate in terms of its contingencies, and trying to make an emotional weight that doesn't really feel substantiated, it didn't really work out. I think it could have benefited from being shorter. I'm coming off quite mean to the movie, but that's just because we have, I guess, the hype and the high standards of Wallace and Gromit. Otherwise, I liked seeing it in a cohesive world. It was neat to see this Wallace and Gromit's only sequel beyond just Easter eggs and references, that there was an actual continuity, and I liked that. And the action was interesting as usual. I was into, like, whenever there were action pieces. It was an entertaining movie, but I think that it didn't live up to our standards for Wallace and Gromit. Speaking of action, next up we watched the famous adventure movie Raiders of the Lost Ark. Yeah, the first Indiana Jones movie. And this wasn't the first time I had seen this. My girlfriend, like with Wallace and Gromit, she had planned that we were going to watch the Indiana Jones original trilogy, because I had only seen the first one. She was going to expose me to 2 and 3. So this was my second time watching the first one, and what else is there to say? It kicked off a series and it's a great adventure. One thing that my girlfriend and I were thinking about while watching this movie was a claim that I think was popularized by The Big Bang Theory, and it probably goes around nerd culture, but this belief that if Indiana Jones wasn't in this movie, it would have ended the same way, which is something that perplexes us as a critique, because, well, one, Indy finds the Ark halfway through, which the Nazis steal from him, so it only works if you believe that they would have found it anyway. It's an ill-fit claim, critique for this movie. The only thing, there's a part, I don't feel bad spoiling, you probably all know this, but there's a part near the end where the bad guys get the Ark, and the hero is set back to square one, and he has to, follow them. And I think, looking at that with the critique of it would have ended the same way, most movies up until Act 3, like, it's a common device for an Act 3 for the hero to be set back to square one. This is not proof of that weird critique. The only point in which I think that critique is valid is that Indy, the most he says is don't look at the Ark, and the Ark has its way with the Nazis and blows them up. That's the only point where I think that, yeah, sure, the protagonist should have done something to conclude the movie. But that's just isolated into a third act issue. That's not part of the general critique of the whole movie would have happened the same way. So that's my defense from a weird claim that my girlfriend and I were talking about that's somewhat popular among the movie. Because it's like, well, why do you care? It's a great adventure. And one scene that's really famous that I thought was like brilliant was when there's a guy with a sword swinging it around, and it's like, oh, how's Indy gonna beat him? And he just pulls out a pistol and shoots him. I think the story goes that Ford was tired on set and he just said, what if I just shot him? And, well, there's the scene. It's something that struck me because it's the first movie and it's almost like joking on itself as a series. Like, that scene is like a parody of, like, a punchline to all the elaborate action scenes before and after. And it's just the first one. It wasn't guaranteed it was a series. That's proper serendipity there. It really works out there. And of course, Indy's sidekick in the movie is just as cool as him. And which is, I'll be saying this a lot about Indiana Jones series. Cool. And I think that's a defining trait for the series. It's just a fun action movie. And the same can be said for Temple of Doom. Now, kind of like how with Raiders, I defended that movie against a common criticism. I know I feel a bit weird doing this because a movie should stand alone. But I do want to defend these movies from... particularly Temple of Doom. I want to defend it from this, calling it the weird black sheep of the series, and I'm really confused why. One thing about it is people say, oh, the girl is prissy, she's a weakling compared to the first one, and I like it because it's different, and also it's a good foil to Indy's bravery. There's a lot of comedy between Indy, her, and Short Round. In fact, I love Short Round because it's such a weird, quirky idea. One of Indy's sidekicks in this movie is a resourceful kid who would become famous once again in Everything Everywhere All at Once. I feel bad for forgetting his name, but you probably know him. And so there's a lot set up there for just funny comedy. I love the idea that Indy has this weird kid as a sidekick that he just perhaps bumps into, knows, and ends up dragged along this adventure. And so people say it's weirdly dark. I commonly hear the scene cited for it is the scene where the tribal cult guy rips out a heart from someone. And that is something that I find weird because it's just a simple composition effect. Yeah, you see the heart, but it's not too extreme or bloody. In fact, part of what I find weird when people say this movie is way dark is look at the first movie. At the end of the first movie, when the Nazis' heads explode, like there's a ton of head explosions, and the one you see their face melt off into a skull. That's far more graphic. And I'm not sure if this is true, but the story I heard is that the MPA just told Spielberg, cover it up with a little flame effect or something like that, or at least the suggestion is why there's a flame effect over it, but not like it does much good, and especially in HD when you can see past it. It's really weird for me to hear people say, oh, Indiana Jones Temple of Doom is dark, when compared to the first movie, it's about on par. This movie is one of the reasons why PG-13 is a thing. And yeah, I'm glad, but I don't see what's necessarily weird about its tone compared to the others, so compared to even the first one in terms of darkness. But also people cite the girl sidekick, the prissy girl sidekick, and Short Round. What I complimented for comedy, some people say it's too silly, too comedic. And to that, I look at scenes like in the first half of jumping ahead in Last Crusade, where Indy and his father are once again really comedic foils, and they're spinning around within this fireplace, and they're, it's like a secret Nazi lab entrance, and they're spinning around in trying to avoid the Nazis. And it's like this setup is absolutely comedy. It's like channeling some weird like stage, Chaplin timing and stuff. I also have to cite how Indy's, when he's being chased by those artifact capturers, when he's being chased in the beginning of the movie in the flashback, he comes across the whip, the hat, and he lands into snakes and becomes afraid of him. His most formative time in his life is within the span of 10 minutes. Now, is that more silly than Indy being, knowing some kid that is pretty inventive and resourceful, or knowing a girl who's a bit prissy? Is Temple of Doom really more silly than that? I think Temple of Doom is a great movie. Why is it the black sheep? Because it has both the darkness of the first movie, and it's just as silly as the third one, but it balances both tones better than all of them. Yeah, I'll just say it. Temple of Doom is my favorite of the series. Its darkness makes for great stakes, and its comedy makes for great laughter. And like I said, it balances both superbly. To me, it's the whole package. It's the best of the Indy trilogy. So, yeah, I take offense when people call it the black sheep a bit. Also, some things I like the scene where Indy is stuck in a ceiling closing room and he has to rely on the girl to save him. What I mean is he's put into predicaments where the danger feels really palpable. I liked that, unlike the first movie, which was a lot of the action was led by him. He ends up in some trouble in this movie in Temple of Doom that I was like, how's he gonna get out of this? The threat felt more real, and it definitely shows in the gauntlet, the non-stop action sequence that I think might even be 40 minutes. The climax is insane, and there's this unity of time thing going on there where it doesn't cut ahead, and then he'll get here or whatever. It's bam, this scene, and then next this happens, and this is happening. It's the climax to Temple of Doom is, you're gonna need a breather. That is some raw excitement. Temple of Doom is great. And next up, The Last Crusade, which isn't as much of a Last Crusade as we thought. We didn't watch Crystal Skull or Dial of Destiny yet, at least. I do want to finish this series. But The Last Crusade does some interesting things. One, it starts off during Indy's youth, and you can tell that it's more about him as a character. For one, it introduces his father, who is, if Indy is more action, his father is more up here, and they are, once again, great foils. Also, not only for comedy, but for relying on each other to get through their adventure. It makes for I wasn't so into it. It takes a while for him to meet his father. But this one, possibly in response to Temple of Doom's darkness, it tones it down a little. It still has great action, particularly in the latter half of the movie. And I feel a bit conflicted on the focus on Indy's character, because Indy, let's look at, if you say what's your favorite Indiana Jones movies, most people will say, when he did this, when he swung across that, when he was in the minecart. Most people won't say character moments per se, they'll say cool moments. And in the first two movies, Indy is more cool guy McGee. He is the guy who does the cool adventure stuff. But in 3, he's more of a character. like when he's getting really angry with some thug and trying to get information about where his father is. That makes sense because of, just anyone's relation to his father. Anyone's relation to their father. But one part where it really shows is when he's finding a manuscript for the Holy Grail and he's laughing all giddily. And I'm thinking, in 1 and 2, we see him come across different relics and he, like I say, cool guy McGee, he picks them up nonchalantly and just, pockets them. So the scene in 3 where he's laughing like a giddy schoolgirl at even finding a manuscript, a hint to the treasure, is one where they try to develop a character so to have an arc. And perhaps this is the basis to where people are fine seeing him get older, because it's not cool guy McGee who is made severely uncool with age, it is Indy Jones. That being said, I like the character arc and message. Indiana Jones has to learn to let the treasure go. And it's something that my girlfriend and I were talking about, how well this message aged when the value of museums were being questioned, like one where, why should this be in this culture and not, why should this artifact be in this culture and not the artifact where it was made, not in the culture it was made. So we thought it aged quite well. And not only that, but it's one where I hope it didn't seem too negative when I was talking about Indy Jones's characterization. I mean characterization in the most literal sense, that he becomes a character in this movie. But I like that there's this duality with Indy Jones. Puts on glasses, in a suit, he's a professor. He writes the history and tells the story of these artifacts. But when he puts on the leather, gets the whip and the hat, wow, I sounded like I described someone in BDSM. He's an adventurer. And where he gets the artifacts, where the artifacts are valued as physical objects. And it's interesting because it's almost like it is a great conclusion. It's an end to the adventuring. You don't need the artifact. The physical existence of it is just what it is. What's important is telling the story. So it's kind of like the arc is Indy is able to set down his hat and embrace the study of archaeology. That it's not these artifacts, it's the story told through history. Like how his father is, studious. He has libraries, he writes books. It's a really cool, interesting arc, especially one that I think some people might even contest. That, why shouldn't you? Yeah, some of this does belong in a museum, some may think. So I think it's interesting because Indiana Jones is definitely a mainstream comfort action series. So for it to have a message that I think may challenge some viewers, that's special. Also, before I move on, here's how I rank the Indy movies. Kind of weird. Beginning of Last Crusade, and then Raiders of the Lost Ark. The last half of the Last Crusade, and then at the top, Temple of Doom. I haven't seen the rest of the series, but that's how I rank them. I know it's weird splitting up Last Crusade, but hey, that's just how I feel about them. Next up, we watched The Sandlot. And this is a movie, or I say next up, but this isn't in chronological order. I kind of went through when we watched the Indy movies. But anyways, we watched The Sandlot, which is a movie that my girlfriend was not familiar with. She's from Britain, and this is a movie in America. If you ask anyone on the street, of course they know this movie. Though, you're killing me, Smalls. You throw ball like a girl. Everyone here knows this movie. It's a very American movie. So I guess it's just not popular in places like Britain. My girlfriend wasn't too familiar with this, and I think she said it's probably not the classic there that it is over here. So this was my way of sharing, I guess, my culture, if you want to call such a mainstream piece like this. But I guess it's just weird to think about that way. But this is a part of sharing something that I grew up watching on TV. You all know the story, probably. A kid is playing at the Sandlot, a little nerdy kid playing baseball, and when the ball breaks, he goes into his stepfather's room and gets a signed baseball. Uh-oh, it's signed by Babe Ruth, and they need to get the ball back. I say that's the plot, but it might be more fair to say it becomes the plot. That is the story of maybe the last 40 minutes. It resembles the a Christmas Story, which I guess this kind of narration might be popular. There might be a certain American type to this sort of narration where it's, well, and you get that sense because of the literal narration of, oh, when I was a kid back in the 60s, this happened. So they have both this and Christmas Story have that, but they also are anthological in structure a bit, where it's like, oh, and then this happened, and then we went to the pool, and this is this story. And in that sense, it feels really authentic. It feels really genuine that, hey, this is just life when, reflecting on what happened when you were a kid and the people you knew. And it's a real feeling movie. And it's still funny. It holds up from when I used to watch it as a kid. But that's part of what determined what else we watched this month. How I watched it as a kid. I saw it on, if I recall, ABC Family. And I saw it aired as a marathon with The Sandlot 2 and The Sandlot 3. Yep, there are Sandlot sequels. Direct to DVD. No surprise there. And my girlfriend was stunned at the concept of the third one's story, that she had to watch it. She was staying here for 2 weeks, so she had some time to kill on a crappy movie. And the story of The Sandlot 3, aka The Sandlot Heading Home, is this baseballer is really smug. He thinks he has it all. He has a hot wife. He has riches. But does he have heart? Well, when a firework hits his head during practice, he wakes up as a kid in the 70s. And for a story like this, it ends up becoming rather cliche. It's about this real estate agent. I want the Sandlot. I want to turn it into condos. No, you can't take the Sandlot from us kids and stuff like that. Yeah, well, I happen to have a little league team. Oh, whoever wins gets the Sandlot. And it devolves into a cliche, win the game, get the Sandlot, which is something that I liked about the first movie, is that it didn't need that. It took place on the Sandlot, but the first movie is so chill. It's not about baseball. It's a sports movie that's just about the fun of hanging out with your friends. It's not about the sport, but Heading Home ends up about the sport and the same win the game to beat the story plot. Yeah, it has a really weird tone. For one, the guy becomes a kid and he's reunited with his mother who died of cancer. So there's a really heavy story hook there, and it plays it pretty straight of him getting to reunite with his mom and see her again under these circumstances. Another weird thing is they do the scene where they're hurling insults at each other, and one kid ends up insulting his mom, and it gets really serious. I mean, as an insult like that would be, but you can't go from calling each other buttface to that. It's a really weird tone. My favorite scene is when they go into Old Man Myrtle's. He's this old blind man who's dead. So they go into his abandoned house, and you thought he was just a normal guy from the Sandlot. No, they have to go in and steal this other signed ball. I guess he had a ton, and it becomes an Indiana Jones fitting. It becomes an Indiana Jones escape with even this giant baseball statue rolling down the stairs, almost like it gained sentience. And there's this escape sequence with booby traps in his home. Why did they make some old man from the first movie into some freak who rigged up traps in his home? It just made no sense. Like I said, the tone, there's a lot of conflicting tones that don't mesh in this. Well, I say conflicting, but it's just the heaviness of the mom has cancer and the weird, stupid gags in the rest of it. And, spoilers here, it's not a matter of that he woke up from a dream he had of what if he did things differently in the past and now he's going to turn his life around. It's not that. It's not like he wakes up and, oh, I've undergone an arc, I can do this now. Nope. Time travel actually happened. He wakes up and he's in a completely different life. He has the wife he should have been with, the nice wife instead of the hot wife. Time travel actually exists. What a crazy, crappy movie. But it was fun watching with her. And for Janie who's watching, don't worry, you didn't miss anything when you fell asleep during the climax. That was just a cliche baseball game. And our last movie we saw together while she was here was The Blues Brothers. We were on a Drake and Josh, iCarly. This may make some viewers' skin crawl, but we were on a Dan Schneider sort of run while we were here. We were watching a lot of Dan Schneider shows that we grew up with, like iCarly, Drake and Josh. We watched some Zoe 101 and some of Victorious. Sadly, Victorious isn't that good a show. And one episode we remembered is when Drake and Josh do I'm a Soul Man, and they show a clip from Blues Brothers. In fact, that's why I, when that scene came up, I turned to her, isn't this in Drake and Josh? And yeah, it was. That scene exactly. Blues Brothers is a great movie. John Belushi and Dan Aykroyd, just unparalleled comedic duo in this movie. Within some of the scenes, there's the phrase situation comedy. And of course, from the situations births the jokes. But here, it was just so funny that some of the antics they got into, I was just laughing just from how absurd, somehow, good the situation was. There were some times where there wasn't even a joke, but I still had a smile on my face. I totally loved it. So great comedy, and it knows it's not just that, there's funny character moments. There's great action scenes. The police chase at the end is famous for a reason. It knows when to get really wacky, and whenever it got, like when the car flips backwards, whenever it knows exactly when to put, okay, they won't be seeing this coming. And it caught me every time. There were so many great laugh out loud moments beyond just character interaction. Just great action too. Just great action and some wacky action. And I'm not usually into musicals, and it took me a second to think to myself, oh yeah, this is a musical technically. It's just paced that well. I like the song pacing, and it's one where the songs are necessary for the story. It is, beyond just being entertaining in their own right, it is a superb movie. Probably one of my favorites I'll see this year. This is my first time watching it. I usually just caught bits and pieces on TV. But that was the last movie my girlfriend and I watched while she was here. But just for fun, I'm gonna finish up February with the movies we watched when she went back to Britain and what we watched over Discord. And the first one, I said we gotta finish up the trilogy, Sandlot 2. What's the story of Sandlot 2? Some prototype rocket for NASA flies into space stupidly and falls into the neighbor's yard and they have to get it. Yep, it's a direct-to-DVD sequel that just rehashes the plot of the first movie. It takes place in the 70s and they tried to work in the women's liberation movement into the story, which you might think may be interesting to see how it worked for, kids of the time. But it just evolves into, what, you girls think you can play baseball? Well, this is our Sandlot. What, girls with a bat? Oh my gosh, my mind explodes. Just the same juvenile, like, Saturday morning cartoon junk you saw, as a kid. Just really lame. And it goes to show that the kids in the Sandlot 1 were youthful. They were believable kids, but they were still pretty charming. They were still likable. But here, they come off so juvenile. I think whether or not they are meant to be a bit older, they more specify their age. They're in 7th grade, and that doesn't really help them. They are just not charming. They're juvenile and childish, and the writing of the first movie is just not there. And considering it copies the indirection of the sort of anthology-esque structure of the first movie, you don't want to hang out with these characters. It kills the movie. The Sandlot 2 is built on a mountain of stupid and flawed decisions beyond just, its ill-fated, its ill-mannered copy of the first movie. And next up, we wanted to further disappoint ourselves with Blues Brothers 2000. Now, once again, it's a movie that does more or less the same thing as the first movie. My girlfriend, in fact, said, wow, this movie is like a legacy sequel before legacy sequels were a thing. And one thing that looms over the movie, John Belushi isn't there. He can't be. How can you make a Blues Brothers movie without a brother? You can consider this existence of this movie disrespectful, but content-wise they handle it somewhat respectfully. Characters say sorry for your loss, and it's, it is a loss. We like the Blues Brothers. But whenever they say that, it's just a further reminder of what this movie doesn't have. It doesn't have that connection, that bond. It's just a shallow shell of the original. And such a depressing fact as, a man's death, even when they treat it respectfully like that, it's just a further reminder and looms over the movie. Not to mention, it's just a piece of crap. Songs start rather abruptly. Beyond just the camera work of hard, or editing rather, of hard cutting to this area and the characters singing, where it's framed like a stage, despite how much more depth the set pieces may have, their performance feels much more limited. Not like a film where this isn't an environment. This is a stage for a performance, and thus the musical segments feel so divorced from the narrative, which the narrative and musical segments in the first movie were in such harmony, but not here. Not to mention the writing itself is cartoonishly stupid. Like I said, the first movie knew how to save wacky moments. This movie, somehow in the middle of a scene, I'm supposed to believe that the Blues Brothers had the smarts to rig a remote control to control their car? What garbage are you trying to feed me? So the jokes don't work, the scenes themselves are asinine, and I'll just say it, there's I don't know how to end it. The movie doesn't even know how to end it. It all of a sudden, credits show up. So, and beyond just the ending, I can't really tell you what much of the story is. I don't know why they're going out and doing these performances. They just happen just 'cause. So there's no story. One thing that really struck me is this movie is 2 hours and 10 minutes, I think. And I said to my girlfriend, oh, the first, why is it this long? And she said, well, the first one was 2 hours and 30 minutes. I really thought the first one was like an hour 40, maybe 50. So to think that the first Blues Brothers is longer than the second, and it feels shorter, man, that's just, the first movie is just paced so well. It's so fluid. It's such a joy to watch the first movie that I severely underestimated its runtime. Man, the first one's great just to sit back and watch. The second one, stand up and change the channel more like. But that was the movies we watched for February, and oh, and before I forget, if you've seen any of these movies, tell me what you think of them, and particularly how you rank the Indie trilogy. I once again thank Janie for coming over to America again, and hopefully I can go over to Britain again this year. And also hopefully, one, maybe I'll keep up this series if you guys like it, and two, I hope to get to more working on my next big review. And maybe I might even try a smaller one to build up my confidence. Oh well, I'm a bit ambitious. I like big projects, but we'll see how it goes. Thank you so much for watching. And thank my girlfriend for watching these movies with me. And I hope you enjoyed. I hope you have a fun time wherever you are, and I'll see ya. Bye bye.